Hello and welcome to Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. The Irving Police Department's community engagement program, Shop Talk, received national attention when the U.S. Justice Department honored Irving officer John Plunkett. Plunkett created the Shop Talk program here in Irving, and because of its success, he received the Attorney General's Award for Distinguished Service in Policing. And now, through a partnership with One CommunityUSA, the program is in expansion mode to communities close to home and throughout the country. Officer Plunkett joins me today, along with representatives from One CommunityUSA, founder and CEO Tony Brinker, Director of Community Engagement Brad Deason, and Robert Munoz, Director of Unidos. Thank you all so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. We're going to discuss an initiative that is already making a difference in bridging the gap between police officers and the communities they serve. And we're going to start with Officer Plunkett. For viewers who may not be familiar with the program, Officer Plunkett, can you tell everybody what is Shop Talk?
Shop Talk. Shop Talk is a program that was created here in Irving in order to bridge the gap between the police and the community. Approximately 3.5 years ago, I spoke with Chief Spivey, he was an assistant chief at the time. Now he's our chief, about the need to build the relationship in the community between the police. Chief Spivey said, you know, Plunkett, we have a relationship already in the African-American community with the NAACP as well as the church groups. And I explained to Chief Spivey, I said, you know, we need to do more. We need to get out in the community and be able to relate to people because everyone is not involved in the NAACP. So we decided to go into one of the shops, went into Mitchell's Barbershop, and we started there, and we have expanded to 22 shops now where we're going in and speaking with the customers. We're speaking with the owners of the barbershops, just building relationships, answering questions, and we're having different events at these different shops just to let the customers and the public know that, hey, we're human also, and to answer a lot of the questions that they have, because there's a lot of misconceptions that's going on, that's being spread on the internet about what the police do. This is an opportunity to actually find out face to face what we do as police officers.
I love it. Now, it sounds so simple. You said we just went in and we did it. For those who are going, what? You can just walk into the barbershop and start talking to people about what's going on in different communities and with the police department and what's going on in people's neighborhoods. How did you actually get started? You just walked in and said, here we are, we want to talk to you. How did it begin?
That's interesting because some of the shop owners was a little bit nervous when we first walked in. They was like, oh my God, you know, this is going to be bad for business, for instance. Or, you know, what are we going to do? This is going to run our business away. In actuality, we went in, I'll walk in and speak with the owner of the business and say, hey, look, this is what we're trying to do. Are you willing to allow us to come in and just have a conversation with you and your customers? And the majority of the owners say, okay, let's give it a try. So we brought in 1 or 2 officers initially. And then we'll bring in more officers later. And we try to stop in maybe once a month and just have that conversation with them. And one of our goals when we started this here program was take this here program outside of Irving, okay? Taking it into different communities. So I reached out to Operation Blue Shield back at the time, and they're now One Community, spoke with them about assisting us with taking this here program outside of Irving.
I love it.
This here around.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask Tony about that. I was going to ask her to tell us how the program Shop Talk actually came to the attention of One CommunityUSA. So now we've got a little info. Tell us more, Tony.
Well, Officer Plunkett joined a meeting that I had with Chief Spivey, and he was telling me about the program. That was probably 3 years ago. And over the last 3 years, we've communicated back and forth. And I would say about 18 months ago, he reached out to me again, and I ended up having my team contact him. And we have worked with him over the last year. We've done our best to help grow that particular program. And what we're looking at now to do is take the program beyond Irving The team now has Shop Talk in several different cities, and our ultimate goal is to take Shop Talk nationwide.
I love that. And you know, One Community USA already has several programs under its umbrella. So I have to ask, how does your embracing of Shop Talk help you advance your mission?
Well, it is one of our key critical programs. One Community was built on bringing citizens and first responders together to unify, rebuild bridges of trust, and create the type of positive change deep within a neighborhood so that we can grow the neighborhood and it becomes sustainable. And by that, I mean, you don't want someone from the outside coming in and saying, you need to put a business here, or you need to move there, or you should be dancing to a different tune that you may say, this is not how it works in our community. So the most important thing is to let people within the community work with the first responders, help stabilize the neighborhood if it's unstable. And then from that process, it revitalizes. That's where economic growth comes. And by economic growth, I mean jobs, better health care, better schools, better opportunities for people who may have not had good opportunities in the past. But by bringing the whole team together, it's sustainable, and you can create a better neighborhood and a better city that way.
For sure. And I have to say, you really have some impressive support from the people helping with that mission. So let's bring Robert Munoz and Brad Deason into the conversation. They are both retired from the Dallas Police Department, and they have a wealth of expertise in community engagement. So let's start with you, Officer Munoz. Would you tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. I just recently retired from the Dallas Police Department with a little over 29 years, Starlene. My role as a police officer in Dallas, I ran the Office of Community Affairs, and I was also the lead coordinator for the Unidos program, and I was also the Latino community liaison. So with that said, I transitioned to the civilian side, bringing the same vision, energy, and drive to continue building this relationship with our community. And I think it's important right now between me and Sergeant Deason, and he'll tell you in a minute. Well, we have over 6 years of experience in law enforcement, and from the community engagement background, I had over 6 years in the background. So it's an honor to be with One Community USA.
Wow, and thank you so much for all you've done for our community here in North Texas. And Sergeant Deason, I want to turn to you now. Can you share a bit about your background?
Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to be here. I'm also a recently retired sergeant from the Dallas Police Department. I was with Dallas for 31 and a half years. I've done 12 years in patrol, 13 years in the gang unit, and then the last 6.5 years, I was involved in community engagement. I was the sergeant responsible for our police activity lead, which was bridging the gap between first responders and the community. I've been retired for 10 months, and I decided to join One Community USA because they had the same exact vision, except now on the civilian side, I get the opportunity to do the exact same thing. And I'm just like Sergeant Munoz said, the same vision, the same drive, the same commitment. We understand the dynamic of what's going on in the world right now. So it made sense to do everything we could possibly do to build that trust. And like you said, between the two of us, we have over 60 years of experience of being a part of these types of activities.
Well, thank you so much for that background information. And also to you, I say thank you for your service here in North Texas and all you've done. Now, you've both retired from policing, but are now working with One Community USA, as you said, to continue your efforts to bring communities and first responders together. Why is that mission so important to you? And let's start with you, Sergeant. Why was that so important to you to be a part of?
It just made common sense to me that I wanted to just continue to give back to the community, because being an African American male and also being a retired police officer and now being a civilian, I understand exactly where people are coming from. So I knew how important it was to try to build that trust back that has been missing for so long. And the dynamic is Shop Talk is a perfect platform to allow us to go in people's backyard to say, so they'll feel comfortable, because in the African American community, that trust between first responders in the civilian world is lacking. So we need to do everything we possibly can as a community to bridge that gap.
I love that answer. And how would you like to answer that? Why did you want to be involved, Officer Munoz?
And same philosophy, Starlene. Like I said, I ran the Office of Community Affairs. I was the Latino community liaison. The Hispanic community was receptive to embrace our first responders due to the immigration concerns and so forth. So my message our message should always be transparent in terms of what we're doing in terms of our community engagement efforts and our messaging. As a former first responder in law enforcement, we have to continue fostering those relationships, having those conversations. The one thing about my program and my overall goal is not only to educate, but to empower our community, Starlene. And I think it's imperative right now, especially in this challenging time. So that's why the vision that we're bringing to One Community USA and the energy, knowing that we have that background, it's going to just complement the whole program in itself.
For sure. Okay, let's talk about that program that you're currently working on through One Community USA. Officer Munoz, tell us about the program you lead, Unidos.
Well, like I said, I'm bringing it from Dallas to the civilian side now. I know, and I my heart was set and transforming those relationships through Dallas to the community now, to the civilian side. It's imperative that we continue doing that throughout North Texas. UNISA's program is established throughout North Texas. It's established in 2007. There's so many agencies that are already in place. Other agencies don't have really outreach efforts, but I think it's imperative that me as a civilian and a former responder or law enforcement, that I help them create those programs, because that helps their communities. Those communities want to get involved if they're embraced by the community and by first responders. They'll be more receptive to reporting crime. It'll decrease crime as well, because they have that relationship with their first responder. You have to be in the community and talk to them. That's one thing about my vision and my overall goal is you gotta go to the communities, to the churches, to the senior citizens, and have those conversations, embrace your community. And I think that's important.
Definitely. And Sergeant Deason, what is your role as Director of Community Engagement entail?
My role overall as a whole is to make sure that we take Shop Talk outside of Irving, Texas. And also, like Ms. Tony Brinker said, our overall goal is to take it nationwide. I've been involved with Shop Talk the last couple of months, and the program is so dynamic. We have added several police agencies here locally that came aboard. Euless Police Department, Duncanville Police Department, DeSoto Police Department, Grand Prairie Police Department, and we're in negotiation with several other ones. So we're looking forward to take this outside of Irving and nationwide. It's just a matter of time.
Very impressive. Officer Plunkett, you're still on the front lines with almost 30 years of service. So I have to ask, how has Shop Talk changed since the program first started back in 2016?
Okay, it's changed as far as the relationships. Now we're having more people in Irving have confidence in the Irving Police Department based on us going in, interacting with the public. They're having trust. They're calling us. They're talking to us. They believe in us. If you look at some of the videos that's been put out with ICTN, if you look at the Shop Talk videos, you can hear the testimony from some of the shop owners talking about, hey, in Irving, we good. We know Irving Police. We know that we can trust Irving Police. So that's because we get out in the community and we give them an opportunity to talk to us. Many, many times when we're going into the shops, we hear this here constantly from the customers. Why haven't you guys been doing this here all along? Why you haven't been doing this all along? The customers are asking. The barbers are asking for us to come in there and talk. So this is a program that's needed in different police departments throughout the country. And it needs to be spread throughout the country like One Community is doing. We really appreciate the effort that One Community is doing. They're assisting with scholarships for some of the barbers. this is some of the things that One Community has helped us out with. They have helped us out with the Shop Talk Blue Christmas, where we have actually assisted families that was in need. And we wouldn't have been able to do this here without the help of One Community, providing the funding to help these here families in the different back to school events that we have done. One Community has been right behind us. And to say that One Community has with us on steroids.
Sounds like a great partnership for sure.
Yes.
Well, let's talk a bit about why expanding this program across the country really is so critical. I mean, Officer Plunkett, when Shop Talk first started, please tell us, what was the initial reaction of shop owners and customers?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, they were a little bit apprehensive about us coming in. They were like, oh man, you know, what the police doing here? What the police doing? Now they are accustomed to seeing us coming in all the time, just sitting around talking to them, and they're actually engaging the police in different conversations about what's going on in the community. When there's an event that happens, like in Ferguson or somewhere like this here, they want to know what our opinion is on what took place in Ferguson or what took place in Minnesota or somewhere of this nature. So they're always asking us these questions. And the good thing about it now is, you know, we provide our phone number where they can call us and they can ask us questions about problems that's going on. When there's an issue with code enforcement in Irving, they'll call us up and they'll ask us this, because now they have a voice. They have someone that they know that they can trust, and they can call us and we're gonna give them a straight answer. So they like that. The customers like it. They like contacting the barbershop owner and saying, hey, can you have Plunkett call me because I got a problem that we need to try to resolve. So that's what Shop Talk has done here in Irving, and all of the different events that we have had in Irving, thanks to One Community. Christmas.
I love it. Bridging a gap that definitely needed to be closed. Officer Munoz, what was the initial experience like with Unidos?
Well, like, you know what? Embracing it from the civilian side, I mean, I knew it was going to be challenging, because now they send me from, not in a uniform now, starting from a sports coat, but now I can understand it from two perspectives. From the sworn officer as a civilian, I can understand and understand their concerns. I mean, you see the news, what's going on right now with, a lot of the challenges that we have right now. Having those conversations, embracing and going to their communities, and that's always been my ultimate number one goal. You got to go and shake their hand, sit down, have a cup of coffee with la abuelita or the tia, which is the grandmother or uncle, and have those conversations. And they embrace it just for the fact that I'm still out there helping them to not only to empower communities and help them get involved with their local law enforcement agencies. It's important. This is just a working partnership.
Yeah, let's talk about those conversations a bit. What were some of the topics people had questions about, Officer Munoz?
Well, I mean, obviously the one concern that they had was the immigration, starting to be honest with you. They were concerned that we were immigration, that, if they report crime, their immigration status was going to be questioned, and it will be in question. And that was that's not the case. The fact of the matter is, if you're a victim of a crime, we need to continue reporting that crime. Your domestic violence victim, you need to continue reporting that, because there's resources, there's benefits for you as a victim. And I think that's important that we continue sharing that information, those resources to our community, because they are, like I said, they're involved in the community, but some are feared just for the fact that they're going to be, if they report a crime, they're going to get deported, or they're getting just threatened by, hey, I'm going to report you, deport you. And that's not the case. We got to continue having that messaging still. That should be our narrative, continuing, moving forward.
I'm glad you have that open communication with them now. Officer Plunkett, did Irving officers face tough questions?
Yes, definitely some tough questions, and they've been challenged several times. But the Irving officers, when I'm in the shops with them, and let me clarify this here, I'm not always in the shops. Officers now are going into the shops on their own. When I'm not at work, they'll go in and they'll speak with the customers and the barbershop owners. But the questions are asked, and there's some tough questions. Every time there's a shooting, that's controversy that goes on in the United States. So customers are asking officers this here, We don't always agree. We can't always get everyone to agree, but we try to meet midway. One of the main questions that comes up all the time is, hey, why do police always shoot people in the chest? Why they can't shoot people in the arms and the legs? Shop Talk gives us an opportunity to explain why we shoot when we do have to shoot, why we shoot where we shoot, the placement and everything. And now people are like, oh, okay, so that makes sense. I understand now. I understand. But before, people would listen to social media and they have no idea. They just think that, hey, social media, we could shoot a gun out of someone's hand. Well, that's the wild, wild west. We just can't do that. But we're able to clarify a lot of things that's going on social media that's been put out on social media. We're able to clarify it now. Officers, sometimes they come out, they're laughing and joking. And I would say that there's been officers that have went in also. You asked a question about how does the customers and how does the owners feel? Well, maybe how does the officers feel going in initially? Okay, we have to get the officers to go in and feel at ease going into these different environments also. And most of the time when the officer come out, they're laughing and joking and they feel like, oh, okay, this is pretty good right here. You know, we done went in. So there's a little bit nervousness on both sides, on the civilian side as well as the officer side. So we have to keep things real and say, hey, look, when the officer initially goes in, maybe he's feeling a little bit nervous because especially with the climate now, and people are not liking the police, but they said here in Irving, hey, we're good. The officers are like, hey, we can go in there and we can talk to people and feel good about it coming out.
I love that. And you know what? Thank you for the reminder. Y'all are human and people don't need to remember that, whether they're in there talking with you during a Shop Talk event or seeing you out on the streets. Y'all are human and to approach you that way. So thank you for reminding people that. Sometimes we need to be reminded. And I want to know the answer to that question that people keep asking you about why do you shoot where you shoot? But instead of you telling us now, I'm going to wait on that because that means people need to go visit y'all during a Shop Talk event or come up to you on the street and talk to you about it. So I want to turn to Tony for a minute because we are going to run out of time soon. And from the perspective of One CommunityUSA, I want to know why it's so important that these tough conversations actually happen.
Well, in today's day and time, you've got racial injustice problems, you've got racial inequity problems, you've got lack of communication, and there seems to be a country that is growing further and further apart. So our organization and programs like Shop Talk, programs like UNIDOS, and we have actually 10 other programs, they end up creating a platform whereby people can communicate on a one-to-one level. And by doing that, you actually create that unity. So you can discuss racial issues, you can discuss those topics that people usually turn and run from. And what we would like to accomplish is bringing people together so we don't see some of the issues that we've seen played out across the United States. I will tell you that we work actually in different areas of the country, and we've got requests from people to open up offices. St. Louis is a good example. And St. Louis, they have an enormous racial problem, plus other deep-seated problems that have taken place. What we're planning on doing is taking Shop Talk and taking that to St. Louis so that we can bridge the gap, we can create the unity that all the officers have talked about. And you've given an opportunity for people to see both sides. And when that happens, when both sides have been heard, that's when the magic starts. That's when people come back together. And that's really why we renamed our foundation One CommunityUSA. Our ultimate goal is to bring this country back together, rebuild the right way, and give everybody an opportunity to have a better life.
I love that. What a great description. That's when the magic starts. You kind of touched on this a bit when you talked about the vision for One CommunityUSA and how you'd like to see the program grow. And you mentioned St. Louis. Are there some other locations you're considering? How would you like to see the program continue to grow in the future?
Well, thank you for asking. We do have an office in San Angelo, Texas, which a lot of people have said, why San Angelo? And I will tell you, we have a whole entire city that said, we love what you do. So despite the fact we're small, in Texas, we were ranked in the top 10 for high crime areas. Atlanta is the city that we're looking at. Chicago is the city. We've had requests for New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, LA, Phoenix. Almost every single major metroplex around the United States has reached out to us either through their police department, many times through their governor or their attorney general, for those people who have seen the magic of what we actually do, which is really the boots on the ground, the uncomplicated way of bringing people together. That magic is easily understood once you come to an event. I will tell you, I'm going to give my hat and a big shout out to Chief Spivey for being what I call one of the most progressive police chiefs in the United States. He gave the leeway for Officer Plunkett to run with this program. And we see a lot of other chiefs across the country who are saying, we need to change. We also know that people in the community, they need to change. So by everyone saying we can do better, we have a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to create better lives for our children and their children.
For sure. And I'm glad that you are seeing so much interest throughout the country. And I'm sure Chief Spivey would say thank you so much for that compliment. They're doing a great job, obviously, with Shop Talk because so many people are interested to get this developed for programs for their own communities. But I know with that comes a little research as well. And one of the things you're doing to measure the success is actually getting collected feedback and other data. So Officer Munoz, can you tell us about the questionnaires you have participants fill out?
Absolutely. We're going to do a pre-evaluation survey, Starling. We want to get their feedback with not only the Shop Talk owners, to get their feedback in their community. What's going on in the communities? What are your response in terms of your relations with your law enforcement, your first responders? We rate them from 1 to 10, and it might be that, hey, well, right now we're not too, we don't have that positive contact with them yet, and it might be rating low. Then we'll do a yearly assessment. We'll have those Shop Talk conversations throughout the year. We'll do a pre, and then we'll do the post evaluations. At the same time, we'll also gather the data and the crime data throughout the community to see what kind of crime they have in their neighborhood to assess that. Okay, it might be robberies, it might be domestic violence, it might be assaults. That helps us gather and measure our success, if you will, to see how our program is running or not. But it helps us measure that information, and I think it's important we got to measure, and we collect that data and we pass it out to TCU, and they measure and they do a graph to share that with not only with the community but with our local law enforcement agencies.
For sure. And Tony, what other kinds of metrics are y'all gathering and analyzing?
The metrics that Sergeant Munoz has discussed, what happens there is you can actually track a change in attitude and a reduction in crime. So we're working with Texas Christian University so they can quantitatively and qualitatively assess the data that we're bringing in. So we can, as he mentioned, you create a matrix on that so you can take it back to the police department. You can also take it back to the shop owners and say, since your involvement, not only have you become an ambassador within the community, but you've actually brought other citizens in. That nets out to a safer, more secure, and viable community. And when you get, many times you have to take one street back at a time, or one small neighborhood back at a time. But on an accumulative total, if you have, say, in Irving, Texas, 20-something barbershops, you're going to find that input and better communication from the community, and also the input and better communication back from the police department, creates this environment of safety. And that's where we really want people to excel. So if you're going to start a small business, you're not going to do it in a neighborhood that's not safe. You're going to do it in a neighborhood that is safe. So the net is a better, safer, healthier community where you do have more jobs, where children, you don't have to worry with, about their safety as much if everybody's working together as one. There is an old phrase which I really do love, and I think it went back probably 50 years, but it takes a village. And what we're doing is we're rebuilding a village now in an environment, in a country right now that seems to have many and multiple deep-seated issues. So by, again, having open communication about things that really have been problems for many, many years gives everyone an opportunity to be heard, to understand the opposite side. And from there, as I mentioned before, the magic begins.
It's beautiful magic, and y'all have definitely built a beautiful community. So thank you so much for all you're doing through Shop Talk. Everybody is enjoying what's been done so far, and we are so grateful for y'all being here. We are just about out of time, so I want to turn back and just say thank you so much to each and every one of you. And Tony Brinker, we will wrap up with you. Chief Spivey has referred to this partnership as a game changer. What is your greatest dream for One Community USA as you help to scale up this program in communities throughout the country?
Well, my greatest dream would be to have Shop Talk in every major city across the United States. And from there, it'll trickle down to the smaller cities. If that happens, and again, we've got the positive and communication going back and forth between law enforcement and citizens, we can end many of the racial strifes that we see being played out. So this is a positive way. It is the right way to bring our country back together. That is really good for the next generation and the one thereafter.
Beautifully said. Thank you all so much for being with me to share the success of Shop Talk, Unidos, and the other programs of One Community USA. This is encouraging news, and we really do wish you continued success in creating communities of opportunity. And thank you for watching. I'm Starlene Stringer. Please be sure to tune in Thursday, October 7th for the next edition of Open Line. We'll see you then.